you are an avid trekker and a mountaineer. You're so many things. You're an Ironman triathlete, you're a scuba diver.
I decided to leave the corporate life and decided I left Lenovo. Actually, there are 18 routes to climb Everest. You know how to place your foot. If you don't know, you might twist your ankle or some other injury might happen. There were 6 climbers who just fell off to the Tibet side.
Hello everybody, welcome back to another episode of Qrious Tales, where we have very interesting people come in to have conversations with us about what they have done with their lives, their art, their craft, and a lot of times their careers as well. Today we have somebody who is a pioneer and a trailblazer in his life and in his career as well. He has not only blazed his own trail, he has also continued to push the boundaries of himself and a lot of things that he has been a part of. Welcome Hemant to Qrious Tales.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me here.
It's an honor for us to have someone like you who is always at the top of everything he does, and it's kind of inspiring for us as well. To begin with, we would like to delve into your personal life a little, and from there we can get into your inspirations. So yes, if you can tell about your childhood a little.
Sure, absolutely. So I was born in Delhi, I grew up there. My parents are originally from Jharkhand. They moved very early on and both taught in school. They were school teachers. And I grew up in 70s, 80s. I'm a child of 80s, I would say. India was still developing and things were scarce. We made do with whatever little we had, and in school I was, because there was a lot of focus on education, at least at home, I was pretty okay in school. So were my other brother and sister. There were 3 of us, and I used to be very good in sports. I used to play a lot of football, athletics. I used to captain my school college football team. I think that gave me a lot of, I think especially a team sport like football, it gives you a lot of discipline, teamwork, and the drive to stay fit. That's something which, went along with me as I, grew up and started working, and even now. That stays with you. With respect to education, I did my schooling there. I went to engineering at Delhi College of Engineering, completed that. After that, I came to Bangalore. I did my MBA here at Indian Institute of Management, Bangalore. And after that, I moved to Bombay because that's where I was placed. I started in advertising at an agency called HTA. It was one of the top ones during that time.
This is when?
This is so I studied, I did my MBA from 95 to 97. So I graduated in 97 from iimbangalore, way back. And then, subsequently I just started that in 97 itself in Mumbai. And this was the time when internet had just come to India. And in fact, at IIM Bangalore, when I was studying, we were, I think there were only 10 T1 connections in the country, and we were one of them. So we were really lucky to get access to internet early on, and I just took to it. I was completely awed, enamored, whatever you may call it, with this new technology, because we used to communicate with people across the world. We did, people in the US who had internet connectivity. It was amazing, and I realized that as a career, as a profession, I want to do something in that. I started with advertising, and in Mumbai I found there were a few internet startups, and I liked one of them, and I joined them eventually at half my salary because I wanted to know about the subject and how the startup works. And this was again the time when .com boom was happening.
Right.
Entrepreneurship was in the air.
Okay.
I think that was the first startup phase, I would call it.
Wow.
And the first VCs or investors, angel investors, all those started coming during that time. Eventually, after 1.5 years at that startup, me and 2 friends started a company. It was called E-Delta C Communications. There's a meaning behind it.
What was
What
that?
was
Yeah,
that?
so E is for the electronic media, delta C is the change in constant,
Right.
So basically our tagline was because change is a constant. So that was how we started. I would say we were one of the first digital marketing companies in India. And it was great fun starting up, and which we found 6 months later, maybe it's not fun at all.
Okay.
Because
you had your own struggles.
Yes, we had a lot of struggles. We were 3 years into our professional life. We were inexperienced. Internet itself was very nascent. Internet marketing, digital marketing, nobody had heard of during that time, right? So companies, marketers, brands were not exactly warming up to that idea.
Right.
TV, print, they ruled the roost, and internet was just starting media, so to say.
Yeah, I don't think even Google literally just had the search engine at that point.
Yes,
Yeah.
they just had the search engine. They
Nascent.
didn't have the entire AdWords or
Right.
all those things.
Yeah.
So
They-
how was it, Hemant? How was that time? How is that time different from this time? Like, you have seen the transition itself, right? Because you were amongst those pioneers who were setting up something which was not the norm at that time. So, what do you have to say on that? Like today's world and that time, what is the difference?
Oh, there's a huge difference. As I said, there were single, 2 million internet subscribers at that time. There were very few brands who actually thought this would even make an impact. Very few brands really wanted to experiment also. There were hardly any digital marketing professionals.
Right.
So I was not taught digital marketing. I did not do any course. There were no, there are tons of courses these days. I experimented, did run campaigns. In fact, I wrote my own blog. I still have that blog, and I used to experiment in that, try to
This was
promote.
which platform where you?
I started using on WordPress.
WordPress.
I still use it. Of
Yeah,
course, WordPress itself, if you are familiar with that, it has come a long way.
Evolved, yes.
Yeah, it has evolved quite a bit. So, evolution is that word. It has, the entire internet space has evolved, and of course, it has boomed. You said Google, yeah, they just had a search engine, and I remember we used to use other search engines during that time, even before Google came. Alta Vista. Even MSN we used to use. Google came and somebody said, hey, try the search engine Google.
Yeah.
Okay, hey, look, it's
There was
looking
Yahoo
good.
Also
There was
Yes,
Yahoo.
yeah, of course. Yahoo was big.
Rediff?
Yahoo was
Yahoo
huge.
was huge.
Rediff was a big site.
Big site.
Yeah,
yes.
number one website
Yes.
in India.
Rediff
and
Mail, Sifi. I
Yes.
remember, we were talking about this before we started, and it was what I was in 7th standard.
Okay.
In 2000.
I was in 6th
So-
standard.
And I remember, these friends, and I was one of the very, very privileged ones to have access to computers right at home.
The middle
Because
class.
my father was from the
Yeah.
software industry. He ran his own software company. So we had computers at home, and he made sure that, there was one PC with Windows 95, then 98, and then NT and stuff, which was always there at home. So we kind of had that knack of trying to tinker around with things and stuff like that. But yeah, all these websites, there was Sifi.com, there was a website called India.com, which was INDYA.
Yeah.
And then there was, of course, Rediff Mail,
Rediff Mail.
then Hotmail, and
Yeah.
then all these ICQ Messenger,
Yes.
Call Tiger,
These were the times of
AOL.
Prince of Persia, and we used to go to our computer. These were the times of Prince of Persia, the PC version.
Right.
And we used to go to our school computer lab with our shoes open, and we were told that, okay, don't wear them, the systems will have dust on
Dust in
them
it,
and
yeah.
they'll get spoiled. So yeah.
Yeah.
So, sorry,
It's
please,
crazy.
yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry.
so things have really evolved since then. I
Yeah.
I knew people in this space by names, right? There were only handful of them, right, in the industry. So we knew each other, who's doing what, and
Right.
we had our common meetups or small associations or whatever at that time. 10 years later, it just completely took off when especially when the e-commerce started booming. Infrastructure has changed drastically. Internet infrastructure, technology. So I think those connections, and of course the biggest technology was the mobile phone.
Right.
Right. And India has just it has. I mean, it's way ahead of many countries across the world. Way ahead in terms of adoption, in terms of usage. It's just amazing. I think it has just taken to the next level. And of course, apps itself within India. For example, UPI, for example.
Yeah.
I mean, most of the Western countries
They
don't have
it.
UPI.
Yeah.
In my recent travels, I found like even smallest of villages, whether it is Karnataka, Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, anywhere, everyone has UPI.
Absolutely.
So I had a question taking from the same conversation. Like you've seen the coming of age and transformation of the digital industry in some sense. It's been 24 years. Do you have any like peculiar, curious tales for us or anecdotes, personal anecdotes of, like you were saying that you knew all of these founders, you know, in a very personal sense. What has that been like? I mean, now from there to now today, where, you know, especially in a city like Bangalore, like you drop a stone and say founder, there will be
One.
50 who sit up, you know. What's that been like?
It's really they've been I mean amazing experiences I've had. I would say I was very fortunate that I took the plunge. It's I know it's scary, risky, all those things come along with it, and we went through that, right? We went through hell during our startup. So we started up. I started with a batchmate of mine from iimbangalore, and another colleague who I met in the internet startup I was working in. He was a technology guy, so we thought we had a great team. All that we hired. We actually took office space in a garage. It was a garage, so we were completely, you know, following Steve Jobs. They were our heroes and all those garage startups.
How many people, Hemant, to be like?
So when we started off, there were 5 of us. I mean, we were 3 founders. It went up till around 10, 11
Right.
towards the end before we sold off. That's how it was. But as we went along, then other things, you know, started happening, like, you know, okay, then what I used to studied in iimbangalore, okay, profit, loss, you know, expenses, revenues, started taking over, because you have to run organization. You can't be just, you know, be dreamy about your idea. And basically the idea which we started with, we never actually did it. There was some product idea which we had. We never made those products and launched it. What happened was that we just jumped in and started following what clients wanted, and that's how business sort of grew. So we actually junked those ideas eventually,
Right.
and that was a huge learning for us, because it's all about what the customers want, right?
Right.
And that's eventually, you know, help us sail through. But having said that, when we started, we didn't have much idea about business, running a business. We were like kids. So we said, okay, everybody is getting $1 million funding, all that. Okay, let's make a business plan, go to an investor, get those $1 million, and then start a company. Chal jayega. Right? And we will buy this, whatever, you know, we will be.
This is the time where VC funding had started.
Yeah, it has started, and my friends, they had started. I mean, people who worked with me, the startup, some of my college friends, they had started. Everybody was getting funded.
Right.
Okay, we said, okay, we have to start, we have to get funding, you know. The whole focus was on funding. So we started. we started meeting VCs. We met them, and obviously you will get rejected, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you're not clear on certain numbers, you're not clear on ROI, you're not clear on various things, and the investor didn't understand also, which still remains, by the way. So
That hits home.
yeah, that hasn't changed, right? So they didn't understand the medium, they didn't understand the industry, even though you were only 3 years old into the industry, but you would know, right? But they didn't have that understanding. That's what we felt. So we met a lot of such investors, and we started getting rejections from them. So then what we started doing was that, okay, let's go to them. And there was this, for example, ICICI Ventures was a big venture fund at that time. We went there through a known contact, and we knew that, we will not get any funding. And they said, there was my senior who was one of the fund managers. So we said, okay, if you're not giving us money, can you have other portfolio companies, can we have them as clients, right? So that is something they warmed up to. Okay, yeah, yeah, let's do that. And that's how it started, actually. So they had some companies they had funded in, and there were ICICI companies only. There was ICICI Direct that time, which was still starting up, and they were a payment gateway. So they referred our name there. We met them, and that's how we got our first clients. Eventually, you should be fishing for business, right? Fishing for sales. That's what any business should be doing, and that's something
Still,
which we learned.
I think, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's still the situation. Like
Yes.
the startup situation in the present times is that, like, the companies are suffering because of that, because they're not
Exactly.
making profit.
Right.
It's all burning up the money, and then you end up shutting down the company, most of them. So
Right.
yeah.
It's focus on getting invested or funding rather than getting customers.
Right.
Yeah. How does one sell a media business? Because that's something that I just can't get my head around in some ways. Because being a media entrepreneur myself, and along with, of course, Ruhi and the rest of the team, how does an Ogilvy want to buy you?
What happened specifically with Ogilvy? We met a few agencies, we talked to them, we got 1 or 2 offers. My partner, he just sent a mail to all the CEOs of agencies. The MD, the CEO of Ogilvy replied.
Oh, interesting.
Ranjan Kapoor was he was a visionary. He was one of he mentored Piyush Pandey and everyone. He was like really he took Ogilvy to #1 position where it is now. So he met us, and I think we just made a presentation, and
They were sold out.
Yes.
And what is this presentation exactly? Like,
It was
in brief?
about us, what we are doing, what the industry is about. Again, you can't expect him. He was again old school, so to understand technology, but he knew quite a bit. They already had an interactive division, a digital division, which wasn't doing too great. So they also wanted somebody who could actually steer it, right? So we just landed there with his this thing. So I think he saw that synergy between what we are doing and what we could do there. And this is very early on. Actually, Ogilvy would be the first agency in India to set up a digital division, and we set it up there.
So, Hemant, now I think we can delve into a more interesting part of you, I would say. Let's get into the fitness and athletic part of it.
Yeah.
We know that you are an Ironman triathlete, you're a scuba diver, you're so many things. You are an avid trekker and a mountaineer, and we will definitely get to your Mount Everest summit journey. But to begin with, We would like to know what inspired you to get into the fitness regime of all these things. Why did you choose this lifestyle, which is sort of a reflection of what you have been in the past in a way? So if you can talk a little about your this transition of, you know, doing the extreme of what we are not able to do, like even go for a walk. So it's
So yes. So as I had mentioned that while growing up in school, college, I used to be a sports person, and especially I used to play athletics, especially football. I used to captain my school, college teams. So I love playing that, and it instilled a discipline in me. It gave me that that joy and the high of a sport, of teamwork, playing with others, and these things, like especially teamwork and all that help you in various other aspects of life, which subconsciously you adapt to other corporate life working, and of course the discipline of staying fit. I think that was very important. I remember that during my final year of college, in one match, I injured my knee. I had a ligament tear. But anyway, so later on, that injury even became much more bigger when I was at iimbangalore doing my MBA. Anyways, I ensured that I did a reconstructive surgery and moved on. Then I just got into my career, my entrepreneurial journey, and I was as I forgot that discipline part of staying fit and others, because I was working like 16, 17 hours a day. It was crazy. And towards the end of my entrepreneurship, right, and I took a sabbatical because I felt that I was burnt out. This is very early on.
Okay.
I'm talking about 5 years into my career. I was burnt out. That was the time I moved to Bangalore.
But this was around the time of you having sold to
Ogilvy, and after that I was there very briefly, and then I moved out. I moved to Bangalore, and I decided to take a sabbatical. As I said, 2 years of entrepreneurship, and then within Ogilvy also, I was working day and night, and it's not. I mean, I loved that working, but I was completely cut off from the world. I felt. I don't know who the president of India was, or what's happening in Middle East, or things like that. So that was not me, right? And I started, questioning all that.
The existential crisis.
Exactly. So it started very, very early on for me, and that sabbatical actually helped, because I think one should keep on doing that, and you stop, and then you look around.
Gives
you have
clarity,
time to look
yeah.
around, and then you think, okay, what am I doing? Maybe whatever I'm doing, is it making me happy? Is it what I want? So answer I got was no. So then I delved deeper, and I said, what will make you happy? I went back. So I started running. I mean, that was the time when marathons were starting in India, I said, okay, let me run a marathon.
Okay.
And it's a huge thing in your mind, right? So I started with half marathon first, 21 kilometers, but I've never run that much in my life. So, okay, so let's train for it. And there's no trainer, so I did everything on my own. Because I used to train in school, college, we had a coach. So I was aware of certain exercises and warming up, all those. So I was aware of all that. Is that we used to play football, and I used to run, athletics, but I was to be mainly a sprinter, 100, 200 meters, nothing beyond that, right? This is long distance. So that aspect I didn't know. But overall, how to certain muscles to work on, so I had a view on that. So that training very early on in my life actually helped me train for this. I think it's very important to like the process.
Right.
And that's something which has stayed with me throughout. Someone like Federer, for example, right, who was been number one and all through. It's not that he just goes to Wimbledon and wins it, right? There's a huge hours of training which goes into that, and he did that for like more than 2 decades, right? I mean, doing the same thing again and again, I mean, sometimes bores you, right? It's end of the day office work. I mean, it's office work for
monotonous. Yeah,
exactly. So you have to like the process. And when the D-Day arrived, marathon happened. I finished it. So it was an amazing, feeling. And I also realized that the most of it is in your mind. Right? The 21-kilometer distance was like, wow. 21. I mean, I hardly can walk, whatever, 1-2 kilometers, whatever. I haven't done that ever, right? And I realized that it's mainly in your mind. It holds you back. You have to keep on pushing till you get there, and you can get there, like I did with that time. So it gave me some amazing boost, encouragement. I mean, whatever the word might be. So that's where it started. I think my first half marathon was in 2004. I was in a startup. I joined a bigger company, Lenovo. I had a bigger role. I was more busy, but still, there were those questions still were hovering around.
Yeah,
right?
Somewhere down the line.
Yes, it were all there. And of course, since I had an entrepreneurial stint, I somehow didn't exactly fit into the entire structure. I started in the corporate structure, but I became an entrepreneur. So I knew, I tasted blood, right? So I just could. Exactly. So I couldn't fit back. I realized that. And I realized even that time when I joined, even though everything was great, we had a great working culture, all aspects, finances, all those things. You could do digital marketing because you were controlling budget, so you can experiment. All those things I was doing, and doing amazing things on digital marketing front at Lenovo. But I just couldn't fit back and started asking those questions. And then it came back again, right? I went back, what made you happy? Went back into childhood. And then that in Sikkim I saw Kanchenjunga, right?
That was the memory.
That was the memories, and similar memories came back. So I need to go to the mountains. I want to hike. I want to trek. And so that's how it started, my trekking journey.
Right.
And and again, during that time, so right now there are many trekking companies.
Right.
You just go online, check, okay, Uttarakhand, okay, I want to go this, call them, everything is arranged, all those things happen. Nothing was there during that time. You have to just go there, find your own guide and do. Right? So fortunately, and there was this government bodies, like in Uttarakhand, there still is, Kumaon Mandal Vikas Nigam, KMVN, or Garhwal GMVN, right? So they used to organize, they have these huts, trekker huts, and they have laid out routes, and they have their own guides, porters, etc. So I contacted KMVN and said, I want to do Pindari glacier trek.
So you used to tell them that you want to do this?
Yes, I went to their website, very basic website it was. It still would be basic, I won't be surprised. I had to go to their office actually. Some near Majestic, there was some small office. I went there. They gave me one brochure. Nothing was on internet or phone. Nobody picked up. So I said, I want to do this trek. What does it take? So they gave me all the information and I booked the trek through them. and I went there with a friend and did that.
Wow.
And
So you directly did a glacier trek.
yeah, it
Okay.
was.
That's interesting.
It's a easy trek. It's not a very high altitude trek.
Okay.
It went up till the glacier. We didn't walk on the glacier per
Right.
se, but it was a very beautiful trek. And I remember we were completely not prepared for it. Not exactly from a fitness point of view, because at that time I started running and all that. But yeah, to a large extent also. But what to carry?
The gear, basically.
The gear, the clothes. Bags were so heavy. I was carrying books. I thought I'll read during the trek. Things like that. Okay, a lot of unnecessary stuff, which most of it dropped at the first stop we got, and then got a porter also. Then we went on. We had a guide, and we met other trekkers along the way, and we met one sadhu who had a kuti near glacier. I still remember he made us some pakoras and teas,
Wow.
which were the most tastiest I've ever had. So
And what was,
he-
the
that-
gear of this sadhu?
he was wearing just the saffron robes.
Oh.
So actually, that's if you go on that route, that kuti belongs to Pilot Baba. Okay?
Pilot Baba is very famous.
Yes. So
Yes.
he's an ex-Air Force,
Air
guy
Force.
who's from Bangalore,
Yes.
which I found out
Yes.
later,
Okay.
who left Air Force and became a sadhu. And he lives there.
Okay.
Wow.
Yes. So
Is he still
Alright.
there?
I think,
Yes.
yeah.
Wow. So you met
Wow.
him, Pilot
No,
Baba?
no, he wasn't there. We met his disciple.
Oh,
Yeah, his disciple.
wow, okay.
Yeah.
very
that time.
interesting. So,
So what's this Pilot Baba story? Like I've read about him somewhere.
So
I
he
think I've just not.
he
followed.
worked. He was in Indian Air Force. He
Mhm.
served with Indian Air Force for a long time, and I think over the time maybe he also asked those existential questions to himself: what makes him happy? And this was the path he chose. So he left all the worldly
Material
things,
world.
yes, and just
Wow.
became a sadhu.
wow. Now coming to the main point, like you did an Everest summit like very recently, and first of all, congratulations for that.
Thank
for
you.
sure, you are one of those
incredible. Stuff.
Yeah, you are one of those rarest people on this planet who have done this, and we are lucky to have you here to share that experience. So, to begin with, so there is this very famous photographer, National Geographic photographer, as well as an alpinist, Qrious. He has said that Mount Everest will always be a blank canvas, and the way you plan to climb it is the creativity of the skill, the way you do it. And today we are here with someone who is, I mean, you are a creative person, you have that background, and there you are submitting Mount Everest as well. So what made you think of this, like submitting Mount Everest itself, like the highest peak of the world? What made you do that? And obviously we'll get into the details of it, but yeah.
Right. Funny you say that, because just a few days ago, there's one old professional contact of mine. He sent me a message on Instagram and said, "Hey," I mean, he congratulated me on Everest and all that, and he said, I remember meeting you 20 years ago, and that after that we haven't met actually, but we have been in touch. And at that time, I didn't know that you will climb Mount Everest one day. I told him, even I didn't know then. So, so I didn't know, right? So when I started trekking or hiking, or started running and all that, I had no such things in my mind. I just enjoyed what I was doing at that time, which was that Pindari glacier was the highlight of my life. In 2000, I think 2005 or 6 I went.
Okay.
That was the highlight of my life till then, that I have done a Himalayan trek. And that journey continued with the mountains. A lot of people ask me, why do you keep on going back? I mean, you spend a lot of time, money, all that doing that. I still don't have an answer. I just keep on going back, right? And since 2005 onwards, this 2004, almost 20 years, I've been, almost every year or so, I've been going to the mountains, hiking, and with time I started climbing also.
So Hemant, we just spoke about the Pindari glacier, your trek. So tell me about this again. I would call it a transition of you trekking the glacier, and then here you are summiting Mount Everest, the highest peak in the world. What made you do that?
Well, at that time I didn't think of Mount Everest. It was like way beyond me. It took quite a journey to get there. At that time I was very happy. At that time Pindari glacier was the Mount Everest for me, I would say. Since I liked it so much, I thought I'll continue doing that. And every other year or so, I started to go to the Himalayas, do one trek, come back. So that pattern, continued. That trend continued. And again, those questions, they never left me, right? So in 2010, I found the answer to that question, and I decided to leave the corporate life. I left Lenovo, and I said, okay, let me find something to do on my own, become an entrepreneur again, but something which I really like doing. One of the things which I was thinking was, okay, one would be the same path of digital marketing, which I did 10 years ago, or I will do something in the travel industry, something new. I didn't know what. I just used to travel or trek. And during that time also, I traveled quite a bit, not just do the treks. I went abroad. I used to go to Europe. I used to travel within India. I loved the entire thing. And it was not just the act of traveling or sightseeing places. It was about meeting people and connecting with different kind of people from different genres of life. That was amazing. And after I left my corporate life, I didn't immediately start something. I didn't know what. I was still lost. But I started consulting, and since I was in the digital marketing domain, there were only a handful of them. So projects just came just like that. And I was able to get my bread and butter. Not yet wine and cheese, but yeah, bread and butter. And it went on, and it gave me amazing flexibility and to do things and plan your own schedule. So I started trekking more. And 1 year later, I went to Everest Base Camp in 2011.
Okay.
It was mind-blowing. That entire experience was just mind-blowing. I was in Nepal, and I went there during the first week of April, I remember. And this is the time when the climbers actually start going to the base camp to join their expedition team. Mm-hmm. And we met a lot of such climbers who are going. I was in complete awe.
Wow.
Right? I met Sherpas. My guide used to look at this Sherpa. He's climbed Everest 3 times. So can I take picture with you? I have a lot of such pictures which I took along the route. And I was again apprehensive, right? Everest Base Camp is a 8-day trek. Okay. And it is at an altitude of 5,364 meters, which is around 17,000 feet. Right. And as it is high altitude, you can get altitude sickness and all that. And it is not an easy trek.
Where do you start exactly for the base camp?
Right. So you fly from Kathmandu to a place called Lukla. Right. Lukla, there's an airport there. Yeah. Very short runway perched on a cliff.
Yeah, it's one of the craziest runways in the world, right?
Yes, it's one of the world's dangerous airports, in fact. Every year some accident happens there. Right. Some flight or something or the other. Luckily this year nothing happened. But yeah, it's one of the world's most dangerous airport. You come to Lukla, and the same day you walk some 2-3 hours to a place called Phakding. Okay. You stay there for the night. This is at an altitude of 2,600 meters. So technically it's not high altitude. Then next day you go to a place called Namche Bazaar.
Okay.
Namche Bazaar is a bustling It used to be a bustling village. Now it's almost a bustling city at that altitude. And over the years, I've seen it transform into, and it has everything. You have pubs, you have cafes, you have whatnot there, internet cafes, all that. It's amazing. It's so at that altitude you reach high altitude, and you stay extra day to acclimatize.
Okay.
So you stay there for 2 days, and from Namche Bazaar you can actually see Everest.
Okay.
So you hike to a bit as part of acclimatization walk, and there is a Everest hotel or Everest viewpoint.
Do you also take any medication for thinning of the blood for the acclimatization purpose?
So there are drugs like Dimox, is
yeah.
acetazolamide is the generic name, which people take. I don't take that. I'm very anti-medicine kind of a person because they give more side effects than anything. And in the treks which I lead, I usually discourage people to take that medicine because it is a strong medicine. It has a lot of side effects. So if you are acclimatized the natural way, that's the best way. But sometimes people are not, and then we do administer them in small doses, not the entire tablet kind of a thing, maybe half, quarter kind of a thing.
Right.
Start with that.
Right.
So that's what I recommend. Personally, I've never taken Dimox in my life. But yeah, to answer your question. And yeah, so after Namche Bazaar, the other stop, you go up to Tangboshit. There's a beautiful monastery there. The entire route is beautiful, and you start seeing other mountains.
Yeah, but you were telling us about the Everest hotel viewpoint. Like
Yes.
what does Everest look like from there?
So it is pretty far, but you can see on a clear day. Again, you see a amazing view. You see Everest. You see Lhotse. Lhotse is the 4th highest mountain.
Yes.
They are right next to each other.
Yeah.
And there's a very nice shaped mountain called Nuptse, around 7,800 meters, which is also high. In Nepal, all the mountains are like, such high mountains. So they are like, they look very beautiful. And more than that, there's this mountain called Amadablam. Okay. If you go through the route, it's only 6,800 meters, but it's such a beautiful mountain. I think Everest is nothing compared to Amadablam.
What is
Oh,
unique
really?
about that? Like, what is unique about that mountain?
It's called Amadablam, actually means mother's necklace,
Okay.
and it's shaped that way.
Wow.
So it's like there's a huge peak in between. Then there are two surrounding peaks along with it. It's beautiful, and throughout the route, it sort of never leaves you for quite a distance. And you're walking alongside it. It's very beautiful, and it's even tougher than Everest actually to climb, even though it's lower. Because it's technical.
Okay.
Yeah, it's technical, and it's.
Okay.
But yeah, so there are these other mountains, and not just the mountains. You go through villages. You meet those beautiful Nepali kids, Sherpa kids along the route who ask for toffees all the time. The entire joy of trekking, comes with all around you, not just, of course the mountains are there, they, give you such a humbling effect, but all this comes along with that. You meet Sherpas, you meet porters who are carrying crazy loads, like cupboards, okay, some 4-5 gas cylinders.
Wow.
Not one,
Wow.
4-5 gas cylinders up that altitude wearing slippers.
Wow.
Wow.
So it's just amazing how the entire thing is, and of course you see yaks and all those along the route. You meet other trekkers from all over the world, right?
Right.
People from South America, Mexico, US, Europe, Australia, all around the world. You meet them in cafes and talk. And maybe you'll never meet them again in life, but those memories remain with you, and with some you are in touch with them, like for the rest. With some I'm still are. So the entire experience is really amazing. I think one of the things, that's what I like, hiking so much, because of all this. So basically, then you reach Everest Base Camp, and
How tough is this 4-day base camp trek? Because
from Namche.
Yes, because for a fact I know that a lot of people do that as well. Like obviously not.
Oh, till Namche, okay.
Yes, like till the
Like,
Everest
till the
base
base
camp.
camp.
Oh, till that would be 8 days. Sorry.
8 days. And how
Yeah.
tough is that?
No.
Say if people like us want to do a Everest base camp, what kind of preparation do we need?
Okay. So I think you should be reasonably fit to do that. You should ideally do some other treks, some easier treks, 3-4 day treks in Indian Himalayas. So fitness is a given. You should have that. But I feel that just fitness alone, won't help you. You should like that idea of trekking. You should like the idea of camping. Though you don't have to camp in Everest Base Camp because you stay in tea houses or lodges, which is fairly, good. I mean, it's not like sleeping on the floor on a sleeping bag kind of a thing. There are beds, all those things are there, and they have kitchens where you get everything. It's pretty luxurious. But to answer your question, yes, you should be reasonably fit, which means that at an average you walk some 7-8 hours every day. Right?
Okay.
So, which means that you should be able to walk that with a backpack. Although there are porters who carry a bigger rucksack, but you will still have to carry a backpack where you'll have your basic layers, waters, and some snacks, right? Which would be around 4-5 kg. And as you go higher and higher, the oxygen gets thinner and thinner, and 1 gram becomes 10 grams or 100 grams,
Yeah.
Right.
So your backpack becomes heavier. So you should have that what I call as climbing conditioning, right? You should be able to go up and down, right? It could be stairs, but I would recommend doing on an uneven terrain because that's the terrain you will encounter there, and they won't be
Right.
like simple steps, right?
Right.
Because again, while doing that in training, what you're doing is building muscle memory, right? So that you're in an awkward spot, you know how to place your foot. If you don't
Right.
know, you might twist your ankle or
Right.
some other injury might happen. So it's very important to do your regular day hikes, or if possible 3-4 day trek in the Himalayas. It gives you that perspective of what to expect. It helps you encounter cold also. Right? Cold is another thing. It's not just about acclimatizing to high altitude, which I'll talk about a bit, but also how to survive that cold or how to get adapted to that cold in the nights or while walking. With respect to high altitude, as you said, what I recommend, basically you have to stay hydrated, which is drink lots of water, have a circulation. Basically there should be input, output. You should drink, pee, right? So your body is generating enough red blood cells which carry oxygen. That's the basic funda of it all. And the mantra is climb high, sleep low. So the reason you spend 2 days in Namche is that the second day you actually go at a higher, so this Everest View Hotel is at a higher than Namche Bazaar. So you go high, you go there, sit there for a while, see Everest, and then you come back to Namche Bazaar to sleep. So it helps you acclimatize.
Okay.
Basically your brain has gone there and had a whiff of low oxygen, and then you got higher oxygen again at lower altitude. So your body starts adapting to lower altitude that way.
Okay.
Right? So you have to do that. And while going up, you should ideally go slow, gradually acclimatize. You shouldn't run or go fast. So, these are small things which you should take into consideration, especially while you're doing Everest Base Camp or any high altitude trek. So actually there are 18 routes to climb Everest, known routes. But there are 2 popular routes. One is from the Tibet side, which is called Northeast Ridge Route, and from the Nepal side, which is the South Col Route, COL. Of course, the Nepal one is more popular because of various reasons, such as logistically it's better equipped. There's the search and rescue happens quite a bit here, as in helicopters could go up till Camp 2, or even they can land up till Camp 2, which is at 6,400 meters, or they can go up till Camp 3, but not land there, but they can throw a line and lift
The injured
climber, etc. So that is, but in the northeast side, which is the China-Tibet side, all those, it doesn't happen, right?
I've heard that you can drive till Everest Base
Yes.
Camp from
Yes,
that
in
part
Tibet
of
it's around, you can, there's a road, very good road, all the way till base camp.
Chinese, huh?
Yeah,
Seriously?
yes, yes.
मैं morning walk को गाड़ी से जाके आता हूँ. Like,
Base
wow.
camp होके आते हैं. Yeah, that's how it is. Though Tibet side is more difficult because it's more windier and very cold and steep. Nepal, I mean, relatively, both sides are tough.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, you're in ice.
Yes.
So,
But in the from the Nepal side, there's this place just after the base camp. There's this place called Khumbu Ice Fall, right? Which is very treacherous, very dangerous. It's basically the glacier. The base camp is actually sitting on the glacier, the Khumbu Glacier, so which continuously moves, right?
Oh.
And so this Khumbu Ice Fall is like a minefield, snowy minefield, which keeps on changing. There are huge crevices. These are those wide gaps between ice, and those are bottomless pits. Right? You drop something, though, you get dropped yourself, you'll never be found. It's like that. So you have to cross those. There are ladders you put, of course, easier said than done. But then you have
this is like the first step to
Camp 1. This is between base camp. To go to Camp 1, you have to go through this.
Okay.
There is no other way.
Oh, there is no other way.
No other way.
Okay.
And that's the reason a lot of people, to avoid this, they go to the north side to climb.
Okay.
Because Khumbu Ice Fall is very treacherous. And there are these huge seracs. Seracs are basically huge ice and snow boulders, huge, right? And because, during the day there is sun, it might melt, glacier is moving, they may fall anytime.
Right.
And if you are below that at some point in time when these falls,
oh my god,
there
You're gone, finished.
And almost every year some accidents happen. Either people falling in the crevices, some injuries happening, or seracs falling, people dying. Just this. So it's very, very dangerous.
So you did the
Nepal side through
side,
Khumbu Ice Fall, yes.
So
Wow.
what was it like? I mean, if you can take us through
Yes.
it visually, yeah.
It's okay. So what happens in Nepal is when the Everest season starts, the expedition season starts, the Sherpas lay the routes. When you say lay the route, they basically put a fixed line rope all the way to the summit. Right?
Okay.
It takes time. I mean, they start doing that from March, April onwards, and by May first week or so, the entire route is done.
And the trekking, what are the official what is the official time to do the trek? Like between which month?
So if you want to do Everest Base Camp trek, March, April, May are good time, and October, November they are good time to do that. The climbing season is mainly April, May, in which you eventually climb in May. There are some weather windows which open. I mean, what are weather windows? When the weather is favorable, there's less wind on the summit, and you can do that. And those are a handful of days actually you get. And then everybody goes and creates a traffic jam which you would have heard of.
Right.
So the infamous traffic,
Yes,
Everest traffic
yes.
jam. Yes.
So because there are just few, over the years the number of climbers have increased, but the opportunity to go up is only just handful of days.
Right.
And
Did
the rest
you
are
get stuck in the jam?
Yes. So that's Khumbu Ice Fall, and yes, I went through that. I went 2 times because when you go to for the climbing expedition, it's a 2-month climbing expedition. Now people may ask, why does it take so long? because the first thing, you have to go to base camp, and you have to, well, the entire process of walking to the base camp is basically acclimatizing to the altitude as you're going up. Then to climb Everest, to summit Everest, you have to acclimatize further, right? So you do these rotations, acclimatization rotations. So I spoke about climb high, steep, low, right? So you do the same thing. So you go to camp 1, come down, base camp, sleep. Go to camp 2, come down, sleep. Go to camp 3, come down, sleep. So these are these rotations which happen.
So do you?
And you every time you have to cross Khumbu Icefall to do that.
Yeah, that is what I was asking.
Yes.
That you have to do that every single time.
Yes, yes. So
Oh shit.
now what happened this time specifically was that in Khumbu Icefall, so the entire laying down of routes is owned by a government body called SPCC, Sagar Matha Pollution Control Committee. Sagar Matha is Everest.
Everest.
Right? That's what in Nepal it's called, Mother Goddess. So they have a set of team. They have a team actually. They're called Icefall doctors.
Oh.
Okay. They just lay down the route in the icefall, and they just not lay it down as in fixed ropes. They monitor it on a daily basis, because what happens is the route you are taking today might change tomorrow,
Right.
because some other crevice would have opened,
Right.
some serac would have fallen, so you want to avoid that, right? So every day the route changes, and
Right.
this team basically monitors that, and they keep on, okay, this crevice is open, let's put a ladder here, let's put ropes here, anchor it here. So they keep on doing that. It's a continuous job which they have to do. So this time there was a team of slightly inexperienced climbers. That's what I heard, Sherpas, who laid down this road, but able. And what they did was they went the most safest route, okay, which means they avoided all the big crevices. They tried to avoid the big seracs, right? So by doing that, the route became longer.
Oh.
Right.
Right. So what would take some 4-5 hours to cross Khumbu Icefall became some 6-7 hours. Or if
Right.
you're a slower climber, it may take 9 hours. Right. So that's what happened this time. Now, also climbers try to avoid Khumbu Icefall much. So what they do is they climb a nearby peak, which is 6,000 meter peak. So they don't have to go to camp 1, and they avoid
Right.
one rotation basically,
Okay.
right? So I did that. So there's a Labuche East Peak. It's at 6,119 meters. So I climbed that with a few of my fellow climbers. So for us, one rotation was over, because we went up till 6,000 meters, which is same as camp 1, and came down to base camp and slept. So one done, right? And many people didn't even do that. They said they will just
Directly.
we'll go to camp 1, come down and do it again. Then there were our group. So I went with a company called 8K Expeditions, and they organized the expedition. They are one of the leading companies there. So in our group, there were around 40 climbers, from all across the world. So we had largely two groups. So one group went ahead, and their idea was that they'll go to camp 1 and come back. But when they reached camp 1, they radioed from there. They said they're not coming back. They will just do one rotation. From there they'll do camp 2, spend some time, go up till camp 3 and come back.
Okay.
And so basically what they were saying that they will do only one rotation, because Khumbu Icefall was so long and so treacherous. I mean, they realized that we can't do this again and again.
These are the same people who took the longer route, or
Yes, everybody has to take the longer route.
okay.
So, like my group, I was in the second group, we went one day later. So we went through Khumbu Icefall, went to camp 1, stayed for one night, went to camp 3. We stayed an extra night, so we stayed for 3 nights. And while doing so, we went up, came down. We went up till camp 3, not camp 3, a few hundred meters before that, came down. So we did all that. So then we came down through the same icefall. Yes.
Was this your first attempt at climbing Everest, or have you tried before?
No, this is my first attempt.
Okay.
Though I've been on the base camp route 3 times,
Okay.
right? Including first in 2011, then 2 times I went again, leading groups, because by that time I had started my own company, Rustik Travel, in 2016. I found the answer to my question. Okay, which one to start? I realized that I can't be doing the same thing again, starting a digital marketing company, selling it, then slaving it off for next I don't know how many years and not able to do many things. So I said, okay, let's do this, and that's how it was born. I mean, Rustic Travel is an experiential travel company. There's a lot of focus on curating travel experiences in India and abroad. And we do a lot of walking tours as well.
Okay.
And there's a whole, when I started this, it was not just to start another company and get rich, right? I want to do something which is more meaningful and something which creates impact as well.
Right.
So there's a huge focus on sustainable travel.
Ecotourism.
Ecotourism is one part of it. How we define sustainability, which is largely defined, is through the travel which we are doing, we should work with local communities or local folks so that the most of the benefit goes there. Right. And whatever we are doing through travel, there are 3 pillars, what we call part of sustainability. It should create local livelihoods, right, local jobs, which means we employ local people, right, which we do for our treks, local guide, local porters. It should help preserve environment, which should be eco-friendly, and it should help preserve local culture. So, for example, the walking tours which we do in the city, we do one in Bangalore as well. My partner, in fact, leads quite a few of them himself. So it's part of remembering old Bangalore, the culture, where it came from. I mean, which we didn't know even when we were researching. So things like that is something which what Rustic Travel meant for us when we started.
Right.
And since personally I was a trekker, there was a huge focus on trekking and adventure as well. But we're not exactly an adventure company. We are we do a lot of fixed departures. We do a lot of customized travel for people in India and people from abroad as well. Largely Indians living abroad. Yeah. So since we're doing these treks again, I started leading them because it gave me an opportunity to trek, right? Do new places, and also it gave me an added responsibility. Now you are not just bindas trekker, just who somebody takes care of it. We are responsible for the group.
Right.
We are responsible for the safety, their health, and and their comfort, and the entire experience per se, the entire this thing. So I haven't done any mountaineering course. I'm not a trained mountaineer, so to say, right? There are these elite institutes in India like HMI in Darjeeling, Himalayan Mountain Institute, set up by Tenzing Norgay himself.
Right.
There's NIM, Nehru Institute of Mountaineering, Uttarkashi, which is again an elite one. There and many others, right? So I missed the bus. I mean, I was above age by the time I realized, okay, I need to do this, most of these places. So I learned my craft on the job, right, while trekking. You learned about, okay, the gear you should carry, what to use. So I was a complete change person from Pindari glacier times to I stopped carrying books.
So talking about gear, Hemant, obviously there are a lot of small things which we would like to know. I would like to segue into the part where you can talk about say the difference between trekking and climbing and the kind of gear which is used for that purpose. So if you can give some insight about these things.
Absolutely. So I'll go back a bit. The same year I climbed, I trekked to Everest Base Camp, 2011. Within a couple of months, I got to know about a group going to climb Stoke Kangri. Stoke Kangri is a peak in Ladakh. It's a 6,000 meter peak.
Okay.
One of my friends was going, and she said, these guys are going, let's go. Eventually she didn't come, but I got to meet a group of trekkers / climbers, and most of them are very good friends till date. So we went there, and with the same gear I had for trekking. Strokangri is supposed to be trekking peak. So when I say same gear, trekking shoes, clothes, same, and the rest of the stuff we hired, like sleeping bags. That's how we do. We went till the base camp, and so that was new for me, because earlier I had just gone to the base camp and came back. Right now you have to go and climb the mountain, and then we were introduced. So we had one extra day, acclimatization day in the base camp, and we were introduced to those heavy mountain boots, and then we were introduced to crampons. Crampons are those spikes which are tied below the mountain boots, which help you walk on snow and ice. You can't slip. We were given ice axe. We didn't know what to do with that. So they told us that, so there are some jargons like self-arrest. So if you're falling, you can, put that, and how to use it otherwise while walking up the mountain. So these are certain new things which we're introduced to, and we said, how will you use them? But the terrain we encountered was not a trek, it was actually a climb, even though we were walking, and there was no fixed rope, as in tied to the mountain or an anchor, what you call, but we were roped with each other, right? So we were divided into smaller groups, and each one was roped and to a guide.
So if one falls, all of you fall?
No,
it,
the others
hold on to.
Hold on.
Okay.
Right. So if you're falling and tied to me on a crevasse, it's my role and the others' role to stop you from falling. As in, you will fall, but you will hang on this thing. Okay. But you will not. Everybody will not fall, right?
Okay. Yeah,
so that is the whole idea behind that. And so these were new things, and it snowed that night. And I was relieved that it snowed, which means the summit push will get cancelled, because I had like so many butterflies in my stomach.
Right.
Because you wake up in the night, 11 p.m., midnight, you start walking. I've never done that. Walk in the dark.
So these are the usual climbing times?
Yes, these are the usual climbing times. You start in the night, summit during the morning, and you come back. There's a reason behind it. Because during the night, the snow is hard. It's easier to walk on. During the day, it melts because of the sun. So your feet goes much deeper, and it's difficult to walk on that.
Okay.
So that's how it is. The same applies much later on when I did Everest. And we were passing through Khumbu Icefall. We crossed that during the early hours of morning or night, because that's when the ice is like frozen. Right. So some seracs probably will not fall.
And how many of you were tied together in the rope while passing the Khumbu Icefall?
No, so there we were not tied to the rope. So that works a bit different. There are fixed lines on Everest, right? So you are not tied, but instead you have you're wearing a harness, so harness is another thing which you start wearing when you're climbing, right? Because with that you tie your rope to a safety. Using that you can tie each other, right? Using that. So in Khumbu Icefall, in Everest, basically you had safety lines with you, 2 of them, which you will clip to the rope. In case you fall, at least in the rope you will hang there, with an anchor, right? And there's a device called ascender, or Jumar, Jumar. It's actually used to basically climb. But basically what it does is you put it on the rope, and when you put it up, it locks. Okay. So it gives you a sort of a grip to go up. And you walk with the feet only, but
it's almost kind of like a ratchet, right? Like it
exactly.
can go forward but not come back.
Exactly, right. Exactly that, yeah. So you use that. That is also used as a sort of a safety. So, these new gear, they're carabiners which you use as, safety, all that. So there is new gear which we are introduced to for climbing, which you will not use for trekking. and some of these gear are like exorbitantly expensive, right? So mountaineering is a very expensive activity slash sport.
What's the usual cost of, say, climbing Mount Everest?
It starts anywhere from $50,000 onwards. So that's around 40 lakhs,
Yeah.
right?
$50,000.
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
I'm saying starts with that.
That's
That's
what.
with
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And this is like from end to end, like the day you leave your house.
Yes. No. Yeah.
Submit
yeah.
and come
overall.
back,
Yes.
technically.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, if you break it up, since we are on the question, of course, there's a huge part you have to pay the company which is organizing, which is Sherpa, logistics, the base camp, all that, right? That's a huge cost. There's insurance. The insurance itself is like 1.5 lakhs.
Okay.
Because I mean, if something happens to you, they will, provide the helicopter
To bring you back.
things like that. Then there's, of course, the Sherpa we are with. There's a summit bonus you have to give him, at least 2 lakhs per Sherpa.
So you
which is
pay in
fine.
dollars.
Yeah, you pay in dollars or Nepali rupee. Sometimes Indian rupee is fine. It works.
Okay, so
sometimes,
these currency work apart.
Yes, and there's a big chunk of the component is the gear equipment. So to give you a perspective, they are the summit boots, right? They're called 8,000 meter boots, and you have 7,000 meter boots also. So you generally carry both for different things.
But what's the speciality of these boots?
So they are multi-layered.
Okay.
So, like the summit boots, they're actually 3 layers. So there's a inner liner which
What
goes
are they
in.
made up of?
These are mix of plastic and some fiber, and they're not very flexible.
Okay.
I wouldn't say plastic, but they're harder than plastic. And inside you have multiple layers because it's super cold out there, in the tune of minus 30 degrees, minus 40 degrees. So it should be able to protect against that cold. Right? So that you have multiple layers of boots inside, right? Linings inside. That itself, for example, costs 1.25 lakhs.
Oh wow!
One
One
boot.
pair of shoes.
Yes. A 7,000 meter boot might be maybe 10,000-15,000 cheaper.
And the
So,
trekking company provides you with that, or
No,
it can
you have
be
to get your own.
Okay.
Yes.
And are there any specific brands which make these, or is there only
Yes,
one brand?
there are some brands which you should go for. So La Sportiva is one brand.
Okay.
I mean, I had La Sportiva shoes. Scarpa is another brand. All these are European brands actually. La Sportiva is Italian. Scarpa is Czech. I don't know. Then there's Millet.
Oh.
Yeah, that's pronounced as Millet. It's a French brand. So these are the ones who make these shoes.
So all these the ones that are so-called hill mountain brands like the North Face and stuff, they're not really the ones.
They're not really the ones.
Okay.
They're not really the ones. So they will make your down jackets and other things, your hiking pants or those kind of things. But these are, I mean, if
Wildcraft
North Face
is
launches
also-
something, I won't go for that. I will still go for La Sportiva
Right.
or a Scarpa,
Okay.
Okay.
right?
Interesting.
Yeah.
So what
Yeah.
else? The
Yeah.
boots and
So then there are the sleeping bags.
Okay.
Now, sleeping bags are different kind of sleeping bags. They have temperature grading. Right, for a trek, let's say if you want to go for Everest Base Camp trek, now throughout the route you have, as I said, tea houses and lodges which have beds and mattresses, but you may want to sleep in your sleeping bag for hygiene point of view, right? You are okay with a 0-degree temperature grading bag. Now, what does that mean? 0-degree comfort, which means you will be comfortable at 0 degrees. As simple
Okay.
as that, right? For Everest, I had 2 sleeping bags.
Okay.
One which stays at the base camp, and the second one which goes with you as you go to higher camps, all the way till Camp 4. Right? That's minus 40 degree comfort.
oh,
So at minus 40, you should be okay. Of course, you wear your other things, down jackets and everything, and sleep there. At Camp 3, Camp 4, you have your down suit, you see those pictures, right?
Right.
With people wearing that entire
Right.
suit. That's down suit. That's super warm. And then you go into that of -40. It sometimes get very hot, but you have to wear those kind of things. Gloves become extremely important. The down suit itself costs some. I mean, depends 75,000 rupees onwards. I mean, Mountain Hardware. I mean, I had one which was around that much. There's some brands which it goes as high as 1.5 lakhs. So it depends on brands. There are brands like Raab. So I had quite a few by Raab, which is a good brand. So my sleeping bags, everything was from there. I had mittens. Again, it has to be like super. I mean, yeah. So I had two. I mean, it was two, right? There was the inner mitten, and then the outer mitten. So outer mitten is basically made of waterproof material, right? Because you're touching snow and everything. And inner is more down and more warm.
Right. So there's no question of you even trying to use a smartphone or
no way,
anything
no
of
way,
that sort.
no way. I foolishly took off my gloves on the summit because I was taking pictures. I had some banners and all that, so I thought mittens were a bit clumsy to do that. I took them off and I got frostbitten.
These are the
Yes, so they are luckily not the severe frostbitten thing. Otherwise, you won't have seen any fingers here.
Right. Yeah.
So they were more of frost nips, but it's been 3 weeks since I've come down now from Everest, and I still don't have sensation on my fingertips, but they're slowly coming back. So I have hope. So
these are the sunburns. Right?
Yes, this was even worse. I mean, it was completely black. Obviously, this part I was wearing the
sunglasses.
those ski glasses, those kind of things. So it sort of stopped that. But yeah, all that is sunburn.
Nobody can really cover their cheeks. And
It was covered to large extent because there was a mask, there was an oxygen mask, and most of the time you were wearing a buff or a scarf kind of a thing, and thin, buff, right?
Yeah.
But the radiation is so much, it just goes through that.
Oh wow.
It's not exactly sun
because
hitting
of
you.
the rarefied air.
Rarefied air and the UV rays actually. It's actually the UV rays. It's not like the sunburn here. Actually, even in Bangalore, we are at an altitude of 900 meters.
Right.
So you do get tanned more than, let's say, you're in a Delhi or in a Bombay.
The plains,
Right,
The plains,
Yeah.
So it's mainly UV rays.
And what about the oxygen cylinders? How notorious are they? Because I've heard that because they're heavy and you do need. Where do you exactly start the need of having oxygen cylinders?
Right. So oxygen cylinder, the oxygen starts at around 7,000 meters. So this is just below Camp 3.
Okay.
So I told you about the route a bit, right? You go from base camp. In the rotation, I did one route, right? So basically, during the rotation, we go all the way till below Camp 3. So you go through Khumbu Icefall to Camp 1. Camp 1 to you go to Camp 2, which incidentally I wanted to highlight here. Between Camp 1 and Camp 2 is a region called Western Coombe, CWM or COOM. Coombe in Welsh it means valley.
Okay.
Right? That is the hottest part of Everest. And when I say hot, the temperatures could go all the way to 40 degrees or even 50 degrees Celsius.
Oh wow.
Yes. And
In
this is
ice.
all ice and snow.
Oh.
Now, why this happens is that entire region, it's a huge sort of a flat field, gradually going. It's not steep. Camp 1 to Camp 2 is not steep at all. It's like very simple, gradual. I mean, one may find it simple, but it's extremely hot because it's surrounded by high mountains. So it's surrounded by Everest there, Nuptse, Lhotse, and the other high mountains. So all the heat gets trapped there.
Oh.
Right. And it's also probably like a solar cooker.
Exactly. A solar
Mirror
cooker is
kind
the
of
right word for that. And it becomes extremely hot. So in fact, The second time around, first time I went through acclimatizing that time we went from camp 1 to camp 2 because we stayed in camp 1. Next time during the summit push, I went all the way from base camp to camp 2. We didn't sleep at camp 1 directly. It was even hotter. I was completely dehydrated. My Sherpa was completely dehydrated. The other climbers with me were dehydrated.
Wow.
I mean, luckily, fortunately, we were staying one extra day in camp 2. It gave us some time to recover, to go to the next camp. So it's like that, you know. It's amazing terrain.
It just sounds insane.
Yeah. At one point you're like freezing almost to death at minus 40, and you have 40 degrees also.
Oh my
So,
God.
yeah. So
Crazy.
So camp 2 to camp 3, in acclimatization we went to a place called Jumar Point. Basically that's where the line starts and the gradient suddenly becomes
Steep.
70 degrees steep. So you have to be on the rope all the time.
Okay.
And Jumar Point basically start using, I mean even before that you're not exactly using Jumar from camp 2 to that point. You can walk and just use safety on the ropes. But so at that Jumar point, which is at 6,900 meters, is where the oxygen starts.
Okay, around 7,000.
Around 7,000 meters.
Okay.
And goes all the way till summit and till you come back.
So what's the role of Sherpas? I mean, how many of them are there with you? Like each of you have one Sherpa, or do you do it all alone?
Right.
How does it work?
Okay. So I'll tell you, so Sherpas, they're superhumans. Without them, you cannot climb Everest, frankly. I mean, even if Sherpa is not with you, but Sherpas are responsible for taking your load up, right?
Right.
Oxygen cylinders you'll get at Camp 4, somebody would have kept it there, and this would be the Sherpas. Or, you know, the food you're eating or the water you're getting, somebody is boiling it for you, right? And these are Sherpas. Plus, you have your own personal, your climbing Sherpa with you all the time.
Okay.
Who is with you and guiding you and helping you, you know, changing ropes, you know, the Jumar, safety, all that. He keeps on doing that. You know, even though you try to do that, they do it quicker than you. So, then you say, okay, let them do it. They're better. So
You're tired also.
yeah,
climbing Mount
all that. So
Everest.
at many points I said, okay, let me just, you know. So you reach an anchor, you have to change ropes, right? Take your safety put there. Even before you do that, this guy is like quick enough to do that for you. Okay. so you know, they're extremely important. So I had the Sherpa, his name was Pemba Dorchi. He had done Everest 5 times.
Oh.
Wow.
He had done K2, he had done Ahmad Ablam, experienced Sherpa, young guy, a family man too. He had a very young daughter. It's very important to have a bond with Sherpa because he's going to be with you, right? All through. So actually, I was with him. He was with me during my rotation also. So he had an idea how I walked. I had an idea how he was. So it's very important to do that actually. Anybody who's listening to this or watching this and trying to, for Everest or any other peak, it's very important. And it goes with your climbing partner. Sherpa is a climbing partner. You know, when you climb, you should have a climbing partner. You should have that understanding. So during my acclimatization, when I was coming down from the dreaded Khumbu fall again, I had a slight awkward fall.
Oh.
Okay, at the top itself, and I landed on my foot at an awkward position, and my knee, it just gave way.
Oh.
Left knee. So I quickly realized that it's a ligament injury which has happened on my knee. My knee twisted basically. And I went down. It took me 5 hours to go down to base camp, which would have taken 2-3 hours because I was not keeping this. I went to the base camp doctor. They saw, they said it's a tear. You have to go. Basically, I realized my Everest dream was over. Because I can't walk with that. I have had that injury on my other foot. I spoke about injuries during football. So I was very well aware of that. So next day I got evacuated in a helicopter from base camp straight into the hospital in Kathmandu. This is after my acclimatization rotation was finished.
Oh.
While coming down, right? I went to Kathmandu, they did X-ray, MRIs, whatever. They put a brace so that I shouldn't walk. Next morning the doctor came, he showed me the reports. Fortunately there was nothing on X-ray. On MRI it was a ACL, anterior cruciate ligament strain.
Okay.
Fortunately not a tear.
Okay.
So that was sort of,
Ray of hope.
yes, a ray of hope, but it was still a strain. It was a minor strain apparently. My knee was still stiff, but the doctor said, okay, it should be okay with the rest in a few days. You don't need to stay in the hospital. So I was discharged the same day itself. He said, you don't need this brace also, start walking without it. So I went to the hotel and checked in and stayed there. So I was in Kathmandu for 9 days during that time, resting. And in a way it helped, because what happens is my rotation was over, my acclimatization was over. And typically what happens during this time, nothing happens on base camp. You're just waiting.
Okay.
And most of the climbers go to lower altitude where there's more oxygen to rest and recover. And oxygen helps. So it was a blessing in disguise, sort of, because I was in Kathmandu and there was ample oxygen there. And it
Helped in healing,
yes.
yeah.
So I think after a week or so, I started feeling much better. I was easily climbing stairs, going down, walking around. So I felt good about it, and I decided to go back.
Okay.
So then I flew back to one point, and 2 days I walked to the base camp because I wanted to see how on that terrain I'm able to walk. So I felt okay. I felt confident. So when I went back, my Sherpa suggested that, and a base camp manager who's the expedition lead and a co-founder of 8K Expedition suggested that maybe I should take another Sherpa.
Okay.
And they were wary of this injury. What if it happens again, right? And I had decided that especially while coming down, I'll be much slower. So I will just take it easy. I will not rush myself. So from camp 2 onwards, during the summit push, I had one more Sherpa, who was actually Pemba's younger brother. But his role was mainly to carry oxygen cylinder. So we carried an extra oxygen cylinders. In case we are on the mountain longer than expected, the usual time, we will not run out of oxygen.
So how much is that, what they carry, like the weight and how many cylinders and in terms of quantity?
So oxygen cylinder weighs around 4 to 5 kilos.
One cylinder.
One cylinder. I carry one because I'm using that. My main Sherpa, Pemba, he was carrying one for himself. And that way he was free from carrying extra for me also, because then he can move around freely. And his brother, he was carrying 4 cylinders, one for himself and 3 for the team as
So
a
that
whole.
is around 20 kg?
That is around
20,
16 kg.
16 odd kilos.
Yeah.
4 to 5 kg.
Yes, yeah, 16. 17.
Okay,
That's
and
quite a
does
bit,
it cause trouble? Like, has it happened that it stopped working and it's not working properly?
So when we went to base camp, back to base camp, we were given a training on oxygen. So it basically, there's an oxygen cylinder, there's a valve, there's a mask, right? So we were told how each one functions. Sometimes mask gets icy, what to do when it happens, and how to connect it, how to regulate it. So we were given that training. And it happens. Sometimes, the valve breaks. So usually they carry an extra.
Valve.
It's actually, it's not called a valve, it's actually the tube which connects to the cylinder. They carry that, they have an extra which they carry in case it happens. They have extra cylinders. You have extra cylinders at the base, at the different camps also.
Right.
So I had 6 cylinders overall to use. I ended using only 5, starting from camp 3 onwards, right? Some people had 10. So it depended on various climbers, what their needs are. Some even used much more because they were on the mountain for a longer time. So it depends on people, but at an average 6 cylinders is something which you use.
Okay.
And the Sherpa, so I started my cylinder at, and it has flows, okay. The minimum flow is at 0.5. There's a based on pressure, right? At the minimum flow, it lasts for around 15 hours or so, 15-16 hours. At the maximum flow, it will last for around 4-5 hours.
Okay.
So, based on the flow, it will, and you adjust the flow depending on how you're walking, how acclimatized you are, at what altitude you are.
So is it advised to, I know that it's climbing and all, but is it advised to breathe like slowly throughout, or any breathing like exercise which you do for this?
Yes, pranayams help, for example. I used to do that. I do yoga as well and pranayams. Somebody is doing high altitude trek or a climb, it's highly recommended. It helps clear your passages, so it's more efficient breathing, so lesser artificial bottle oxygen you take.
Right.
And better, you get acclimatized better.
And did you encounter any dead bodies for that matter on your route? Like,
so I didn't encounter any dead bodies, fortunately, but I encountered accidents along the way. And some of these accidents were of my group members.
oh,
So, in fact, this time there were 8 casualties on Everest.
oh,
5 of those casualties were from my team members. So, there was, so we were going from camp 3 to camp 4, and there was a huge traffic jam, right? So there was one weather window which opened up, and everybody from base camp, chalo,
chalte hain.
chalte hain. Right? So you encounter them, right? There's a huge queue built up, and certain bottleneck points. I remember you're just waiting, right? And
What are these bottleneck points, if you can also tell
yes.
us?
So there are 2 main bottleneck points on that route. One is called Yellow Band. It's I think it's around 7,400 meters or so, around that. So what Yellow Band is actually, these are rocks. It's a rocky patch, a steep rocky patch basically. They are in yellow in color, yellowish in color. So it's called Yellow Band. Now, why is it difficult? Because crampons are great to walk on ice and snow, but if you put them on rock, it's very difficult to get a grip. Right? So people, and it's steep, right? It suddenly becomes 90 degrees,
Oh,
right? If not 90, 85 degrees, that doesn't help much, 5 degrees. But so there's a huge bottleneck. So at that point, whoever is climbing that, they are climbing slow than usual. So then other people are waiting behind.
so you have to climb that 85 degree, and then the journey is
Then
above that.
yes, journey is above that, continues. You go through, then the gradient comes down a bit, there's ice and snow, so you can, that is fine, you can keep on doing that. Then there's another bottleneck up ahead, just before Camp 4, it's called Geneva Spur. That's again a rocky patch.
Okay.
Steep and a longer rocky patch, steeper rocky patch than Yellow Band. So, so there I was at the minimum flow all through, right? There I told my Sherpa, please increase the oxygen flow. Because you would need that, and you are at higher altitude. That's around, say if Camp 4 is 7,900 meters, that's around 7,800, 7,700, almost 8,000 meters. So,
and you're able to talk, or like do you have to like use
yeah,
sign
yeah,
language
you
or-
basically, yeah, if you're close enough, you can, you can tell that, yeah. So at that point, that's the other one. And during the traffic jam also, what is happening is you're going up, and then there are climbers who summited a day earlier, they're coming down. And there's only
that's
one
also
rope.
why.
And there's only one rope, the same rope, right? So you're clipped here, they have to be clipped, because if you fall, you're gone, right? So they will sort of, it's you know how it will be, right? So it was
You're
a mess.
constantly just like
Exactly.
exchanging the thing on the rope. And
So during that time, I saw one body coming down.
Oh.
Basically, there were some 4-5 Sherpas who were sort of dragging that body down. They had tied it to a rope. But my said, oh, rescue ho raha hai. My Sherpa said, it's a rescue.
Oh.
So it was actually not a body, but a unconscious climber.
Okay.
And when it came down, it looked very familiar.
Oh.
It was basically one guy named Bansi Lal, an Indian, who used to sit right next to me in my dining hall, who used to hang out with me.
Oh.
okay.
Right? I was like taken aback by that. So before that, I'd heard that he had broken his arm or something had happened and he might be, airlifted or coming. I didn't know he would be unconscious
Right.
like that. So later I heard that, it was such a weird experience seeing and you become very close in base camps. You're just staying each other. You hardly knew each other before, but in these circumstances with Everest, all that, you really become close. So I was just taken aback by that. Later I heard that he actually had haze. Haze is high altitude cerebral edema, basically fluid,
Right.
comes into your brain. He had haze, and then he was taken to Camp 2 like that and airlifted from there to Kathmandu. When I went back after the summit, he was still there in the hospital, brain dead. I actually went to meet him there, but I couldn't meet him. He was in the ICU, and that's where I came to know he was brain dead. And when I came back to India, 2 days later, I heard the news that he passed away in the hospital.
Oh.
So that was he was from Chhattisgarh. He was running an academy. He was from the police, ex-police. He was running an academy for kids affected by Naxal violence.
Oh.
And he was teaching them mountaineering. He was teaching them sports and other things, and they were getting jobs because of that. So he was doing that amazing job, and he was doing this Everest thing to promote that.
Right.
So that was really sad.
Right.
Then as we went up, right, 2 weeks earlier, when the first window opened up, there were 2 Mongolians in our group who had gone up without oxygen, because there are many people who do without oxygen.
Oh.
They couldn't make it.
Oh, the Mongolians.
Yes. So they had also died. And only one body was there near the south summit, but we didn't pass through that, fortunately. So there was the other in the group. And one day before I summited, one of the members of our group, Daniel Peterson, he was from England. So what happened was that we were part of the same group, Daniel and I, and going up to Camp 3 to Camp 4. And when we reached Camp 4, we reached pretty late because of the traffic and bottlenecks. And some of us decided that we will not summit the same day. Typically, you go to Camp 4, you rest for a bit. You're not advised to sleep there.
Okay.
It's high altitude and all that. You just go up, come down, and try to go down as possible. But we decided, and some of us in the group, and my Sherpa advised, okay, let's stay here, sleep here.
At Camp 4?
At Camp 4.
Okay.
And next day, we go and summit, next evening. And we slept there.
Next evening.
Next evening, yeah, because during the day it's a bit, the snow is difficult to walk on and all that. So we did that. But most of the group, and also because of the traffic, because we will encounter a lot of people. So this group and the traffic went and summited. Right? Daniel was one of them. And later we heard that when we started going up next evening, right, going up, left Camp 4, we heard the news that he and his Sherpa were missing.
Oh.
So what had happened was before the summit, there's a very narrow ridge. There's Hillary Summit,
Yes, yes.
and it's very narrow. Only one climber can go. Now there was this huge traffic. A lot of climbers were on that narrow ridge. Okay.
I remember the film Everest. It
Yes.
has that sequence.
Yes, and there were climbers coming from both sides. Right, people going up, climbers coming down. Right, so you can visualize how crowded it was. And during that time, these guys had summited and they were coming down. A big cornice, it's a sort of a ice thing, right? An overhanging rock on the edge. It collapsed.
Oh.
And there were 6 climbers who just fell off to the Tibet side,
Oh, okay.
right? So they were part of that. There were 4 climbers out of those 6 who were clipped onto the rope, right? So they were hanging and they were rescued by the others, but these 2 were not clipped to the rope, so they just fell. And of course, their bodies have not been recovered. There was no rescue because on China side it's very difficult. So we heard that news when we were started climbing from Camp 4 that this has happened. It was so, well, I didn't see it, but it was so.
How is the feeling? What are the emotions which you feel?
It was not nice because I knew these guys. You speak to them every day. You hang out with them, right? It's not nice. It's very disturbing. In fact, there was a Norwegian couple with me, Rune and Cecily. So they started around the same time I started summiting with my Sherpa. And they also heard the news. They were like behind me. Cecily got so disturbed, she just abandoned her summit attempt. She went back to Camp 4 and then went back. She was completely disturbed with this news. So, so this happened, and when I was crossing that same route, I was so conscious about that. I was so extra careful. And you are, see, okay, this somewhere here it happened. It was there in your mind, playing all the time.
So
when
that
you ridge is sorry.
No, you.
No, go on.
No, I was asking. So when you reach the top, like how far is that distance when you cross that ridge?
It's around half an hour or so. It's from the top.
Okay, so it's half an hour of that ridge, and then you.
The ridge. No, from that ridge to the top is around half. Takes 1 hour. That to cross that ridge, it takes you quite a bit because you're slow and all that. Around half an hour, 40 minutes it takes you across. There's a ridge. There's a Hillary step, which is basically as narrow as it can get, all the way to the top.
So how narrow is that narrow that you're defining?
It could be, as wide.
You can show it with your hands if you want to.
It could be around this,
And
that's all. And what's around you? I mean, if you can paint a picture of what you see with your eyes.
So there's nothing next to each other, just all downhill.
Steep
downhill, that too.
Whoa.
So
if you go down, you will go some, 500 meters down straight away.
500 meters?
Yes.
Oh wow, okay.
There's
like
nothing.
1500 feet at
Yes.
Okay.
Or maybe more.
You don't know, I mean.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I've heard that the top is somewhat like a dining space, like as small as that.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask that.
So not
big
exactly.
is the
It is large enough. It's not exactly flat. When I was at the top, I actually sat. I was tired, so I sat. Let me be frank here.
Did you click photos?
Yes.
We would like to see those photos.
Absolutely. So I reached the top, and I think that was the only time throughout the entire climb I actually sat somewhere because the gradient is so steep. Right? There's no place to sit. Right? You will just sit like this somewhere, holding to the rope, and your crampons are actually anchoring you from slipping. Right. So there was sort of I don't know. It's, maybe the Sherpa has done that over the years. Like a bench type of thing was they had
Yeah,
created.
I was trying to ask that only, that
Yeah.
dining table setup.
The sort of a
Yeah.
It's, not bench. I would say
Bench
more of a
setup.
bench kind of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
It's one part, and it is pretty big. I think there were some 20 odd climbers. I could
Sit.
Yeah, I have from the pictures that were taken. So these are benches, sort of a bench, which out of ice and snow and rock they had made. So I actually sat on that and okay, next, since we are there, okay, let's take pictures and get down. I didn't feel like, I've done it, or I'm
Woohoo.
top of the world.
Yeah.
There was a group, they were like really ecstatic about it. But that has been my feeling in all the summits I've done. Okay, there, I feel very uncomfortable and all that. It's later on when I
Cherish that.
Yeah. So and I was very clear. It's only the halfway I've come through.
You have to go all the way.
Actually, you have to come down. That's where it ends. It's not the summit. It's the down part, and that's where most of the accidents happen, and most of the deaths also happen during that time. So I sat there. We took pictures. Unfortunately, all my fancy cameras, Insta 360, GoPro, all the and iPhone, their batteries were dead. I mean, even though I had put in my down suit, fortunately my Sherpa's simple phone worked. He took all the photographs and very good photographs came. And that was done. And as soon as it was done, we were in touch with the base camp through radio.
Yeah.
So they said, fine, great, awesome, congratulations, now come down. The weather is changing.
Oh.
Okay.
And
this is at what time?
This is, we submitted around 7:30 a.m.
AM.
Yeah, so I think around
So
8:10.
So you said that you started climbing in the evening.
Yes.
So you climbed
Around
through the night.
6, almost, almost, I think 12 hours or something.
From camp 4
yes.
till the top.
Yes.
So there are total 4 camps, and then there's the last.
Yes, this is the summit
12
push,
hours.
eventual summit push. I think took us some 12 hours or so to just go up.
Go up.
And we were very slow. Consciously also.
Mm-hmm.
It takes around 9-10 hours generally at an average. Average climber kind of a thing. It took us an extra couple of hours. Then when we heard that, anyways, we were done with photographs and we heard the weather is changing. The moment we heard that, actually within hardly 2 minutes, suddenly we see a storm hitting us.
Oh my God.
Started snowing, the wind started.
At the top, you were at the top.
We were at the top, not even, and that's the time we just started going through the narrow ridge and all that, right? Even not reached there. And the first thing which came into my mind was the Everest movie.
Oh.
Oh wow.
Because while coming down, the storm happened. It was
Right.
exactly the same.
The same. Oh.
Yes. And there was a complete, before that, if you see my summit pictures, there was sun. I actually saw sunrise while going up, South Summit.
So
Beautiful
unpredictable
pictures.
at the top. Yeah.
And suddenly, everything was white all around. It was a whiteout.
Oh.
It started snowing, there was wind, and then we started walking. And
Is there any like when you fly, there is this thing, you lose the sense of direction, right? Because of the water and the sky. Does that happen on mountains also, especially in these weather conditions?
not really. We knew where it was. Of course, my Sherpa was there. We knew we just have to follow the rope. So since the rope is there, okay, you just have to be clipped on all the
Yeah,
time,
and
right?
intentionally they are of that color, your gear, the rope, so that it is visible in the white.
Yes, the down suits you wear, they are like bright colors, because in that
Fluorescent.
white, you don't wear black colors or white or
Grays.
You wear really bright colors so that you're spotted, right? In case you're somewhere there. So we were just starting going down, and somehow mentally, or I wasn't panicking. I was like, okay, I was very clear, one step at a time, right? Not even like, okay, let me reach that destination or whatever. Okay, one step, and put, ensure you don't get injury and just go with that. And I think it was years of climbing which I've been doing. It's sort of, and leading which I've been doing, where I've been responsible for others.
Right.
So I think it sort of got ingrained in me, and I usually I don't panic usually also when something happens to other members. So that training actually helped me during that situation. I wanted to say this because that's very important.
Right.
You have to go through that. If you are a new climber, you will definitely panic because you don't know what is happening and what to do. So I was pretty calm, and my whole thing was, okay, just make it down in one piece. And even if you're taking time, just go. Around me, I could see people panicking. There was one climber right on the summit, just before that summit, who was struggling when we were going up. And when we were going down, he was lying down with his head on his Sherpa's lap, and he was crying.
Mental breakdown.
I think he was one of the casualties.
Oh.
I read later. So I think he didn't make it. He was having problems with oxygen.
Right, and you also start hallucinating because of lack of oxygen. Does that happen?
Yes,
as well?
that's one of the symptoms of haze actually.
Okay.
When oxygen doesn't reach your brain that much. So hallucination is one of the symptoms. So that is a time, and other symptoms, you have to go down, right?
Right.
So this was happening, one I saw. Then as we started coming down, there's a summit, which is 8848 meters.
Right.
And before that, there's South Summit, which is 8007 meters. So you cross that, and that South Summit is like super steep, like it's like this, okay. Which we were climbing that in the night. I didn't know that time, but in the morning,
more difficult, yeah.
and climbing down, it's even more difficult, right? People didn't know how to. They may know rappelling and all that, but that time some of the climbers I saw, they were just trying to slide down, which is even more dangerous, right? Because even they are clipped onto the rope, they might hit a rock or something, right? They might. So
yeah.
I saw people panicking, including some Sherpas who were not able to manage it. So it was really difficult coming down, and with the continuous storm, it was even more difficult. Somehow we reached a bit down there, and we saw one Sherpa who was completely gone. He had an oxygen cylinder, but his mask was off, and he was tied to the rope. He was alone. We crossed him because it's the same rope, and we asked him, "Are you okay?" All that.
Are you able to speak there, like when?
Yeah, so you will take off your mask and try
that's
to speak.
how you speak.
Yeah. And we try to comfort him. My Sherpa, ensure that his mask is in the right place, his oxygen flow is fine. He did all that. I asked my Sherpa, in fact, told him, I pleaded with him that let's give him one of our oxygen cylinders. We had enough. We had, we could make it without whatever. Let's give him one of our oxygen cylinders because I don't think he'll be able to make it without that. So my Sherpa said no.
Oh.
So
Was he was climbing up, the other Sherpa?
no, at that time everybody would be going down only.
Okay, right.
And these Sherpas, they know each other, right?
Not all of
Is
them. Right, there are like many Sherpas there.
Right.
So, see, when you are on the mountain, you better take care of yourself first, then look out for others.
Right.
Right. If your yourself is not well, you will not be able to help others. And we were still very far away from Camp 4 at that point. So, finally we didn't give the cylinder to him, and we went on our way. And next day when we were going down further down, my Sherpa told, and we saw 4 or 5 Sherpas going up, and he knew some of them. So he's talking to them. So my Sherpa told me that the Sherpa we met, he died, and these are his team members going to get the body.
Get the body.
Yeah. So so too many things were happening, right? Within like 2 days, right? I saw Bansi, I heard about Daniel, and I passed through. I didn't see dead bodies, but I saw people dying, which you read about them later or know about them later. So then we went down to Camp 2, next day from Camp 4 to Camp 2, and we reached Camp 4 that day in the evening. It took us 8 hours to come down. It usually takes 4, 5, 6 hours max, 5 hours, but the storm and all that.
Yeah, so maximum, what is that phase where maximum death or casualties happen? Is there a particular stretch where it happens?
You can't say really, but usually it happens on the descent. If you go back, so if you look at the stats, right, since 1953 when the first ascent happened, Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay, there are around 6,600 people who have climbed Everest world over, right, and around 550 Indians have climbed Everest so far, and around 300 people have died. Most of these deaths have happened on the way down.
Descent.
For 200 ascents, one person dies. Yeah.
Because that's what the numbers that you just said.
Yes.
That's 6,600 people have climbed and only 300 have died.
Yes.
That's
around close to 200.
1:200.
And you know that this might happen to you, but still people do it. What is that thing which pushes them to do this?
Okay, that's a question I still don't know the answer to.
Will you do it again if you are given a chance?
So I may not do the same route again if given a chance. I tend to like newer routes, newer mountains, right? So I may not do that. And sometimes I felt that there's a joy of climbing, right? It's very difficult to explain, and a lot of people keep on asking, why do you climb? I still don't have the answer, but there's this joy of climbing you get, right? Sometimes I felt in Everest that was missing, mainly because it's a bit commercial than other mountains.
Right.
It's very commercial, actually, if you look at it, right? Many mountains I have climbed in India, in the Himalayas, you hardly find people there.
Right.
You don't exactly find traffic jams there.
Correct.
Right? Here you have traffic jams, you have to, there's everything is, you have to pay, and there is money involved, all those things. So it is commercial.
Right.
It has been a huge issue, all the waste which is generated out there, and it's impacting that beautiful Mount Everest and the surroundings. What is the scene like out there?
So this organization I spoke about, SPCC, Sagarmatha Pollution Control Committee, their actually job is to ensure that doesn't happen.
Okay.
Right? Each expedition company who goes there, is their job to get all the waste down. If they don't get down, they are penalized for that.
Okay.
They have to get it down.
Right.
And from higher camps, some come in helicopter and they have to pay for it. So there's a big drive to clean waste. Having said that, many people don't adhere to that. I saw that because I saw that waste. I saw it in Camp 4. I think there was some news item, I think in March I read, or in April, Camp 4 is like that. And these kind of waste just lie there, they don't even decompose, right? It could be your, poop, or could be anything, right? Even dead bodies, right? They don't decompose.
So how do you poop there? Poop and pee, you don't do it in the open, right?
So you're given a bag, and you're supposed to do it in a bag and bring it down.
every time? Like all that waste is also collected and
Collected at base camp, and from base camp it goes away. So that's how you're supposed to do that. At higher camps, so I mean, for example, you will have some, like till camp 2, there is a toilet tent and all that, which is collected and given away by helicopter, picks it up and goes away, right? Which the companies have to pay, of course, and they charge the clients for that. At the higher camps, you have to collect it in the bag, tie it, and when you're coming down, you bring it to the base camp. Yeah.
And what do you eat?
Okay. So up till camp 2, there is some sort of a kitchen, and you'll get your rice, dal, pizza, whatever. In base camp, you get everything.
Maggie.
The best, yeah, Maggie also. Base camp, you get cakes, and they're the best chefs from Kathmandu are flown there just to do that, and they have all the equipment. In higher camps like camp 3, camp 4, you get food packets and chocolates and everything. So those food packets, those hydrated packs, those veg curry rice or nothing. You put hot water, just like those instant noodles kind of a thing, and that's how you eat.
Okay. So Hemant, how good is the medical facility at Kathmandu? Because assuming that everyone who is hurt if there are casualties, they are flown to Kathmandu. So how is it like there?
So I went to the hospital, for my injury.
Right.
I found the facilities very good. The doctors also are very good. So of course this was one of the top hospitals, and all the climbers, any injuries which happen, they come to these hospitals only. So overall, I think the facilities are pretty good.
Okay.
I would say, yeah.
Okay, so I mean, I had one, like this is probably like a very quick answer question where you said that from the China side or from the Tibet side, rescue doesn't happen. Why is that? One.
I think they are not geared for that. I'm mainly talking about the helicopter rescues. So they do not have. So in Nepal, there are a lot of private helicopters which are allowed to operate. So they do all the rescues. Generally, even in the Indian Himalayas, there is no rescues which happen helicopters. It's largely Air Force which controls because these are border areas.
Right.
So I'm assuming that's a similar situation in Tibet side. It's a border area, sensitive area, and only the defense would be allowed to operate there. So that's why there are no such rescues which happen. So they might rescue happen, but you'll have to contact the Air Force, China Air Force, who might take their own sweet time to come. Right, by that time. That's the same thing. Yes. So that could be the reason.
Okay.
Nepal is more liberal.
Climbing something like an Everest is probably like the peak, pun not intended, of ambition, right? I mean, of human ambition in many ways. Where this word, the term ambition, like what does that mean to you? Like how do you see it after now having done it? And how do you relate to it?
I don't know. When I thought of climbing Everest, which was 1 year ago, I mean, it was there in my mind, maybe one day I'll do all that, But 1 year ago, I was very clear, okay, I will do that. And accordingly, I trained for it or prepared for it. It was not like, you climb Everest, you will reach the top of your mountaineering career, all that. It wasn't like that, and it's not like that. I will continue climbing. I'll continue climbing smaller peaks, where I find joy, climbing. So it's not like that. You could ask any climber or mountaineer; I'm sure they will have the same answer.
Has it become much spiritual for you, or have you always been like that? This addictive.
I think it's a bit. I'll answer that in two parts, actually. It's been 3 weeks, right, since I've come down from Everest. For 1 week, I didn't even talk to anyone, frankly.
Oh.
I was completely overwhelmed. And it was not like, okay, yeah, I achieved it, pumping my fist in the air, all that, nothing happened, right? I was like just overwhelmed. And it's mainly because of the incidents which happened around me, right? Which had a huge bearing on me. I really don't know how, I'm reacting. But to come all this way took me a long time, and there's a long process, consciously or subconsciously, I've sort of followed in various aspects of my life. Starting a startup itself is a huge risk, for example, right? It's not a physical risk, but there are other aspects. There's a lot of mental aspect which goes into climbing Everest. You have to be fit, that's a given, right? You need to have some mountaineering experience, some skills. You need to know some, use your gears well, that's a given. But mental makeup is something unique to each and every person. That you have to bring on your own, right? And that's what will set you apart from others. Now, that is something I feel, if you look at my journey, and we spoke about it quite a bit, right? It could be my first marathon, right? And I'm telling you this because when I was walking up there and coming down especially, right, I was thinking of all this. I thought, okay, you did your first marathon and you were so, scared. This is also first for you. Just remember that. Go back. I actually was doing that because of a long walk.
Yeah.
I had a lot of time in the world and I had to do that also to keep on pushing myself. I did my first trek. I did my first climb. That Stoke Kangri thing it snowed during that time also. It was a new thing for me, but I did that. So just keep on going. Actually, was thinking that, you won't believe that. I did Ironman triathlon in 2019. 2 years before that, I didn't even know how to swim, right? It was and at Ironman, I remember I had to swim on the sea. I was doing for the first time, and first 2 days in the practice swims, I went there and went outside, and I was there with a friend. I was telling him I'm going to withdraw from Ironman because I'm too afraid now to just go into the water. And I mean, cycling and running is fine, but I can't do that. But I did that. I had some jellyfish stings also during my swim during that time. But I finished the Ironman. I actually, Kunal, was thinking all of these things, that if you're able to do these things, you could do that.
Yeah.
There's some personal tragedies which happened with me. I mean, I could go that deep actually. Like my father passing away very early on, right? And you recover from there. My mother passed away last year. You dedicated this climb to her. And that was a huge motivation that, that I'm doing it for her. So, so these were these hooks, which I was reminding myself throughout that time. I think it really took me on. So, yeah.
I was watching an interview by, Shah Rukh Khan's interview the other day, and he was trying to define success. And he was asked to define success. And what does it take to be successful? And I'm not talking about professional success or whatever, but just success by itself. Where he says that अगर आपको कामयाब बनना है, तो भूख, नींद और आराम इन 3 चीज़ों को भूल जाओ, right? So, what is your take on that?
So, my take is that you should first define success. Your definition of success will be very different from what the world defines it.
Right.
If you're very clear on how you define it, I think you are definitely moved one step ahead towards your goal. I was very clear that climbing Everest, I'm not doing it for others, I'm just doing it for me. It had a huge cost, right? I had an option of going for sponsors, and I could have got a few also, given some network I have, or connections I've built with certain brands and people. But I didn't want to be obliged to someone, be there, because it was actually a very inward journey for me. So once I was clear about that, then yes, I sort of agree with Shah Rukh Khan. Then while preparing that, you have to wake up early in the morning, do your run or gym or whatever you have to do day in, day out, right? 6 days a week. You have to be regular. You have to. I told about loving the process. You should like the process, and just keep on doing it. There's no return. There's no ROI doing those things again and again. And so 1 year is a long time. You have to keep on persisting, till it happens. Yeah. And even then, anything could go wrong. I mean, my injury could have been even worse. I would have come back. But of course, you need luck. You need wishes. You need positive energies. I think I got quite a bit spiritual. I mean, actually, if you ask me, I'm not a religious person at all, but we had a puja, right? That's how
it begins.
Once a puja starts, then only you are allowed to set your foot on the mountain. Right. You should. So we actually,
it's like their devta, no? They are pleading to them.
You actually
keep
to the goddess Sagar Matha you're praying. That's what happens. And in the prayer ceremony is all about asking her permission to put foot on her and for a safe summit and passage and return. That's what the puja is about. Like I passed that climber who was crying with the Sherpa. I mean, I prayed for his safe passage back. The Sherpa who eventually passed away, right? We met, we couldn't give the cylinder to him. I prayed for his safety. I mean, I became sort of spiritual. I think it sort of helps you quite. I mean, in those adverse conditions, you have to keep it together and, these things. And there are these unknown things which are there, which help you. I mean, whatever said and done, you may be extremely good at what you do, but there is that invisible energy. I mean, and I think I've become more of a believer now. I mean, immediately if you ask me, I think the reason I came back safely was largely due to that. I totally believe in that. I didn't believe in that before. Maybe I do more so now.
A lot of people who have experienced extreme things in their lives, I mean, I feel that they somewhat become spiritual and start believing in those things because there is definitely something which is helping you out.
Absolutely. I'm telling you, I've started believing that now.
Especially in the mountains, you feel it. Yes. Like with my little bit of trekking experience, I have felt it. Like why do you have monasteries there and those flags?
Yes,
and it gives you something.
Yes. Yeah. There's something there in the mountains, definitely.
Definitely, right? Yeah.
And maybe this energy is there. There is definitely some energy, right? There is. And I like to say that and maybe end it with that anybody can do that. If I can do it, right? I call myself a lazy person. I'm generally...
That is why you are an Iron Man and scuba diver.
Yeah, but if you set your mind to it, anything, right? If you set your mind to it, anything is possible. I'm just a normal person like anyone else, right? So it is doable. I mean, any type of Everest in your life. Yeah.
Amazing. Awesome. That's actually like a one-liner that we've gotten straight out. So thank you so much for being very generous with your time and with sharing things which are so deeply personal. It means a lot to us.
Thank you so much, Hemant.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you for being a part of this show, and glad that we spoke about all your adventures, and it will stay with us for sure.
If you like this episode of Qrious Tales, please like this video and subscribe it and spread it to your friends.